Welcome to iConnect, a podcast from Ocular Melanoma UK, where real people share real stories about life with and beyond this and other rare cancers. Ocular Melanoma UK knows just how powerful it can be to hear from others who truly understand the journey. From laughter to loss, science to support, each episode connects voices from across the ocular melanoma community. iConnect, bringing together people and stories. Welcome to iConnect. Today is episode 1, and I'm delighted to welcome Jo Gumbs, the founder and driving force behind Ocular Melanoma UK. Jo set up the charity back in 2009 after losing her dad to ocular melanoma, determined that no one else should face this rare cancer without support or information. Under her leadership, OMUK has grown into a lifeline for patients and families, offering helplines, peer groups, psychological support, and a strong advocacy voice. Jo has played a vital role in ensuring that the patient perspective is heard at the highest levels, from NHS decisions to the approval of new treatments like tebentafusp, which is now available for some people living with metastatic disease. Her focus is on saving lives through earlier diagnosis, pushing for stronger research links, and above all, bringing people together so that no one has to face this rare cancer alone. Jo Gumbs, wow, welcome. What an absolute privilege. So welcome to iConnect. This is our first podcast, and obviously it had to be you.
Thank you, Jo.
Oh,
Thank you for inviting me.
So do you want to start just by sharing a little bit about your personal connection to ocular melanoma itself and what led you to actually create the charity?
God, yeah. Many moons ago. Yeah, basically, my dad just was complaining that his vision wasn't right. So he just kept going back to the opticians and, complained that he's got glasses made up. And he was like, these glasses still aren't helping me. I don't understand. Can't people make things properly anymore? That kind of thing. Just thought there was a problem with the glasses. And then it was just picked up by a different optician that you went to see. And I don't actually know. I didn't ask too many questions back then, actually, what was different. But that optician obviously saw something and said, look, there's a tumour. And at that point, we didn't really have a clue what that meant. I was just like, okay, quick Google, Dad, that's just a mass of cells. That doesn't mean it's cancer. It's sure it'll be all okay. And then he was on that pathway, obviously being referred to specialist centres and things like that. And yeah, I think just from where his was, it was caught quite late. It wasn't easy to be seen. So he had his treatment and it was sort of enucleation, and we just couldn't find very much, like 2000. So this was back in 2007 when he got diagnosed at that point. And then, like 2007 still doesn't seem that long ago. It still doesn't seem like the internet wasn't, huge, or that patient organisations, weren't sort of two to a penny. Yes, we just couldn't find anything. So we found an American group which was it was a list serve. It was a distribution list that you could sign up to. Actually, even that came years later. So, in the early days, we kind of just didn't really know anything. We tried Googling. It said that enucleation, or there was other treatments. And for my dad, we later then found out that enucleation was the most beneficial treatment for him, but we didn't know what that would look like, what that would mean, whether he still had cancer. And he was just he was a workhorse. He just literally lived for his family and just to sort of, make things better for us. So medical side, we just hadn't had this kind of experience before. So, unfortunately, I got a lot of the questions that he had, because we just didn't really know much about it. So yeah, I think it just I was quite shocked in the early sort of stage. I've totally forgotten what question.
It certainly wasn't a patient advocacy support group led by someone with your experience. So OMUK, Ocular Melanoma UK, as a charity, just was born.
Yeah, well, literally, I mean, there was some support, but it was kind of like in little pockets. So we'd found like the lady that done his prosthetic eye. She was incredible, and actually, that was the first probably person that he spoke to about actually adjusting with this and what this would mean and all that kind of stuff. So there was like little pockets of information, but yeah, it felt really sparse.
Yeah.
You know, we Googled and it's like Columbo has only got one eye. You know, you kind of like try to hook onto stuff, don't you? That kind of makes, you know, to try and make sense of the situation a little bit and like know that
Yeah.
actually
Or make
life will be
light of
okay.
it. Or
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Just because he, you know, I think he felt really isolated and, you know, probably being a guy, not to generalize, but, you know, he didn't sort of openly talk about feelings and things like that. He was, yeah, that just kind of wasn't in his nature unless he really needed to. And then, you know, he could. So, yeah, there was like little pockets of support. We had a brilliant ophthalmologist that was really kind to him, sort of it took time to sort of explain things to him. But yeah, I mean, he'd never met anybody or could never talk to somebody with that condition.
No, and as a charity, that's something that Ocular Melanoma UK is proud to have been able to do
Oh,
with
amazing.
Facebook groups and actually setting up local groups of people so that people with this very, very, very rare cancer can meet other people with this really rare cancer.
Exactly.
And it's heartwarming.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I wish there was this great grand plan about that we were going to have done this. You know, it's not like we sort of set out, you know, when you start a business, you kind of draw up a business plan and this is what you're going to do. You know, sort of Ocumel UK as it was at that point, rather than Ocular Melanoma UK, kind of grew because there was that need in the community. You know, so, you know, we met the incredible Neil Pearce, you know, together with another daughter. So kind of in that time, you know, we just thought, you know, he'll be fine. He'll have, you know, his surveillance tests. We thought we were in England, right? You kind of not, you know, we've got a good
This is
healthcare
Dad you're
system.
talking about.
Yeah, sort of going back to
Yeah.
Dad. You know, so we just thought, should something happen, he'll have some chemo. We overly didn't worry about it. We thought just adjust into life kind of with one eye vision, as we now know it's called, was like that was the big hurdle.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sort of 18 months later, he started to say that he didn't feel quite right, felt more tired, and then things like that. We later found that it spread for him. And at that point, there wasn't treatments that could have helped him. So we lost him in 2009. So literally like a few days after, you know, obviously we were planning his funeral and he was very well loved. So that's kind of how Ocular at that point started. We just kind of wanted to get some information that we'd found out all quite at the last minute.
So I mean, you've built a legacy, Jo, to your dad.
Yeah.
From such unfortunate and sad circumstances. You have created this wonderful group. And yes, it is a charity. Yes, it is a business. Yes, you have goals.
Yeah.
But it's a family of people
I mean,
who come together.
absolutely. You know, we'd kind of, that was what we couldn't have done without, actually. And then the only difference that, you know, we met them people through this listserv, which thankfully was there because it was the only thing there back then. And most people we were connecting with were all in the States. There was a lovely gentleman from Israel that we connected with. And, you know, I think tough times brings out how incredible people are. People's own situations are difficult, but actually you still want to help others. So it was just on that path from the very beginning. We just thought, you know, it was difficult. We then met a fantastic lady, Catherine Curtis, who some of our earlier members will have known really well. She was much similar situation as mine. Her dad was needing treatment. And yeah, it was kind of through there. So although we'd started the charity sort of 2009, 10th of October, which is now our Ocular Melanoma Day, Catherine kind of in the early days really did build it. She kind of saw, okay, yes, we can get the website together. We spoke to Neil Pearce at Southampton, Dr. Neil Pearce at Southampton, who's just incredible. And he helped us get the first conference off the ground. And from there, we just built this community. You know, we found some incredible doctors, patients, family members. We started holding our annual conferences. And it all kind of grew from there, but from a sense that actually this community's got something about it that's really special. And I think that's the one thing actually that I'm most proud of is how other people just look out for each other now. You know, the Facebook groups that we've got, thankfully, are really popular, really supportive. They've got a really nice vibe to them, which I'm proud of. And when you hear about somebody else making a difference to somebody's life without us having any involvement, that's kind of when you know that we're doing things correctly. I think.
Yes, yeah, without your direct involvement. I mean, although Ocular Melanoma UK has put everything together in the background,
Yeah,
just for your perspective to sit back and watch what happens. I mean, as probably when you take on a room, we've got a conference coming up, but when you stand there and you look at these tables full
yeah,
of patients and people and the clinical people who've come into the OMUK family as well. We're all very proud of you, Jason. I'm hoping that you must be
yeah.
incredibly
I think
proud.
conference is just kind of special, and it's always, there's a lot that goes into conference that obviously that makes it run as smoothly as it can. So kind of on the day, I just kind of have to block all of that out.
Yes.
But yeah, there's little moments that you kind of think, actually, this is amazing. Or when like you read out your intro like you've just done, that you think, actually, that's pretty cool. It's a well, I suppose actually to give credit. So we work really just very fortunate to know Bettina Real. She's based in Sweden and she's got her own situation with melanoma, and she's literally just in one of the conferences that I think about you and I went to.
Yes.
It's the best people in the worst possible club, or
Yeah.
something very along those lines. And it's just
Yeah.
that something's awful has brought everybody together. It can be awful. It can actually just be something that
It doesn't have to be
it
awful.
doesn't have to be awful. No, and I think that's kind of like my striving goal, is kind of just to
Yeah.
make sure that this can become sort of less significant in somebody's life. Because Jo,
Yeah.
when you've first diagnosis, it's a great big whirlwind, isn't it? And I think if we can make it so that when people Google, they're not reading horror stories, or they're not reading how awful it is, and actually it can be a case of, okay, life's changed. Life's changed. I'm going to need this treatment. I'm going to have these scans. So I think kind of like if we can get it to a place where something like diabetes or something like high cholesterol is, that when you're sort of told, you've got this diagnosis, you can know what life will look like, how that can impact you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that we're missing at the moment, is kind of like that starting to come together.
But I mean, that brings me to ask you about the charity's involvement with NICE, and really, really significantly, we've had a drug approved for use with our stage 4 patients, which and can you explain a little bit about it, how that came about, and how you, Jo Gumbs, a daughter,
Yeah.
is now responsible because of the work that you've put in to have a treatment approved?
I think being brilliantly stubborn helps.
Okay.
So I'm going to use that
That's
as
the
my,
Italian.
it's got to shine through somewhere. So I think, yeah, being stubborn really helps, because, it's a promise that I've made to myself and to others that things will be better for people. And we can't do that unless treatments come through. So yeah, basically, we came to, so, after, so Catherine was incredible at kind of getting everything off the ground. She was basically me, the role that I'm doing now for a number of years. And initially when we took over, we just thought, yeah, we can keep the helpline running, we can keep support going, we can keep that community element that we'd built up going. And then I went to an MP&E conference. So MP&E are Melanoma Patient Network for Europe, who Bettina runs with Gilly and Violetta and Eric. And yeah, that kind of showed, I was working in customer services. I was running a customer service team for Amazing Yellow Pages. I had no kind of background in the medical world or how drugs get approved or any of that stuff. And I thought actually going to that meeting was a real eye opener, because I thought actually we're in a position where we can make things better for people. We can keep providing that one-on-one support and that, that community, but actually we just need to get it better for everybody. So when I say that I love the MP&E team beyond belief, they're an amazing bunch of people, and they do everything they do to kind of help people like me, basically, people that want to make a difference and need guidance on how to do that. So yeah, basically we registered as a stakeholder for the NICE review. So we were part of that decision group where we could then bring a patient in. So brought an amazing lady, Vicky, who shared her experience with NICE, and also another one of our members, Helen. And it's really important, I think, when the NHS, because the NICE reviews that happen are all about, is it safe? Is it effective? And then when it's a drug treatment that comes through, should it be funded on the NHS? So you kind of need to make sure that actually that the national health system is providing cost benefit. So as awful it is for us to hear, cost benefit in the patient world, it's when you're in charge of that purse string, you've always got to make really tough decisions. So initially they felt that it shouldn't have been approved on the NHS. There were sort of still questions to be answered. I mean, whatever the reasons were. But from being in that meeting, I wasn't sure that actually it had been fully understood what it meant, like what the impact of this new treatment had on our community, because it helps a lot of people. For some people it's not the bullet that we need. It's not helping everybody, but it's definitely helping enough people that we need to give people a chance to start changing this, trajectory.
Yeah.
So yeah, we appealed along with the clinicians and another patient organisation, another organisation, and all 3 appeals were upheld, which kind of showed that actually, something more needs to be looked at. So we went through that review process, and then thankfully it was through. So yeah, I think that type of work is the most important, because the thing is, we want people to be able to find their tribe, find a community that actually understands what it means to have this condition. Get those practical life tips that, I can't give to anybody else, but you can. I haven't experienced it yourself. So that's really important. But actually, I'm conscious people that don't know about our work or don't know that they can talk to other people, they're the people that need more help. And so things like the nice guy, things like having this drug approved was major, because actually the system will now just work for them. They will receive scans.
Even without us, if they don't know about us, the system is there. We're not having to kind of back people in directions.
Absolutely. So that's kind of like, that's when you're winning, is kind of actually when we can just get the system to work. But it's not obviously everybody that can have that treatment. You need to have a certain antigen for the treatment to sort of latch onto and help. So yeah,
it's about 50% of it. It's a population thing, isn't it? It's kind of half of us are negative, half of us are positive. It's one of those, and it is a lottery.
Absolutely. And it's just, if you have it in your blood, you have it. If you don't have it, the treatment it wouldn't have anything to sort of, latch onto and get to.
But I'm so pleased that they saw that it was worth it for the 50% that do have the antigen.
Yeah.
So no, it's fabulous. Taking the medical side of the work, there is talk of, and I know it exists, that a lot of people who have their eye enucleated, obviously there is some tissue that's available because there's an eyeball sitting on a desk or in a pot or somewhere, probably not worth thinking about. And some people also are given the choice of having a biopsy during their primary treatment to their eye tumour. So what benefit is the knowledge of what makes up an ocular melanoma?
Yeah.
What good is that for us? Where's that going to take us? And is it something that is being looked at?
Oh, yeah, massively.
If you pardon the pun.
They've got their eye on that, pardon the pun. But yeah, I mean, so Bettina's always told me kind of like you can have a treatment, if you've got a field of flowers, for example, and you've got yellow poppies, that wouldn't work, red poppies, and then the odd yellow daffodil, in this thing. You may have a treatment that works really good, a type of weed killer that works really good for the red poppies. And it does what it needs to do for those. But then that treatment doesn't particularly target that. So we kind of think about cancer as like one thing, one group of cells that are all misbehaving, but they're made up of different things. Having that tissue thing, sometimes it isn't needed, because for some people this is never going to bother them again. They're going to be treated in the eye, which is mostly like either plaque, proton beam, or they may lose their eye, and the cancer would never come back for them. So they'll never need like more treatment again. So kind of whether they had a biopsy, whether they, their tissue's still there, it won't make any difference. But it may do for other people. So
you said you went up to Liverpool a couple of months ago, and iCanAid is up there. So that's a biobank research facility that's working with AI to do what? What's the AI trying to find?
So Professor Sarah Coupland in Liverpool, for a long time they've been obviously collecting samples from patients, either through a biopsy or where the eyes are nucleated. So they've got this biobank, which just basically means that, it's a bank that's holding all tissue samples, and now they're introducing this AI element where actually it can read actually what that is. So one thing that kind of it can't be picked up. One of them said actually if AI can detect whether actually it's a female eye or a male eye that it's looking at, which isn't something a doctor would ever be able to sort of distinguish, but actually the more images that are being fed into the system, obviously the more it's learning. And obviously for this, it doesn't matter whether it's a male or female patient, as far as I know. So yeah, what changes can it start detecting? What are the sort of parts that lead people to think actually this person's going to need more surveillance? That there's an increased risk of this cancer coming back, and that's important because at the moment a lot of the focus is on treating the disease when it spreads. So people have the initial treatment to the primary in the eye, whatever that looks like. All the treatments, they're different, but they're all really effective at treating the tumour in the eye. Very occasionally people might need further treatment to that, but that's much more rare. For some people then you have like surveillance scans, and that's about sort of if it is going to spread, can we treat it at the earliest opportunity? So once we've kind of got a treatment, like say tebentafusp for stage 4, what they'll then start looking at is, okay, well, when do we start giving it to patients? So there's a clinical trial that's just closed now. They were looking actually, can we look at people's blood tests along with their scans and start sort of seeing changes? So, there's the work being done in Liverpool with the iCanAid. There's another melanoma study that's being looked into called Melanoma Me, which is brilliant. And then there's like these trials actually, can we give this treatment early before we start seeing something happening elsewhere in the body to prevent that from happening? So for people that are at a high risk, is there a treatment that you can take sooner so that you don't need to have liver resections? Or
so like a prophylactic treatment, it is a early treatment. It's a prevention.
Yeah, it's kind of a prevention. So they call it sort of an adjuvant treatment. So it's kind of done after your primary's been done, in this kind of wait period where people are having sort of scans, that actually you could have it to avoid it. So if there's any other sort of like microscopic cells kicking around the body looking for somewhere to take hold, that treatment should eradicate them, so that larger treatment isn't then needed. And there's also another study where they're looking at a neoadjuvant, which is done kind of when the eye tumour is still there. And actually, can we give a systemic treatment, so a treatment that goes around the whole body? Can we give that really early to treat the eye, make it smaller, but also sort of mop up any cells that could be around? So there's all really good stuff happening.
Yeah, I mean, the advances in treatments it's not every few years, it's every couple of months now. There seems to be something new. I mean, you're much better off getting diagnosed with ocular melanoma in 2025 than you were, unfortunately, for Dad back in 2007.
Exactly.
It's just a lot of cancers, though, and a lot of diseases. And treatment and the advances in treatment is phenomenal, but that needs fundraising, it needs money, it needs research, it needs advocacy, it needs a patient voice. And Ocular Melanoma UK provide all of that, which is just fantastic. It's fabulous. And you, be proud, Jo.
Be so proud, and maybe get a little bit of sleep in along the way. Do you know what? We've got such a brilliant team. So yeah, a team I could not be without. The trustee board could not be without. The brilliant volunteers that help out couldn't be without. So it's just bringing everybody together. Using everybody's strengths and kind of being there for each other. So, but it's kind of bigger than us, because obviously when we were doing the work to get Tebi approved on the NHS, we can't do that on our own. You've got MP&E were a massive factor. Another advocate that we reached out to was was fantastic, set us on the right path, using other people, learning from other people's experiences, particularly like in the rare community. So obviously, we're quite active, brilliant organisation called Cancer 52. We're one of their members, and they're like an umbrella organisation here in the UK who many rare cancers have got the same types of problems. So we're now on 3 working groups with Cancer 52, looking at sort of difficult, access to medicines, getting research off the ground, that kind of thing. So all that takes effort, and making the most of these opportunities. But then also, it's not just like ocular melanoma only exists in the UK. And if people need
No.
help, you need help regardless of kind of where you are in the country.
We've got international members, and I know from speaking to some of our leading ocular oncologists, I've been there, and there's been kind of foreign voices who have flown in to be treated.
Absolutely.
We in the UK, we're actually very lucky to have some of the world leaders in ocular oncology and also in the metastatic
Yeah.
world of oncology for OM.
But then you've got like groups like Eurocan, which obviously European Cancer Group, they're bringing specialists from all countries sort of together and actually sharing that learned experience. So I think that's one thing that we're really fortunate, in the Europe, in the UK, in the States. It still feels weird saying Europe and UK as if we're two different things. We're in my heart. Yeah, my heart, we're very much the same thing still. Nothing's changed. So yeah, the clinical network. There's a trial that is being done in Clatterbridge. Joe Sacco's the lead. He's working with one of the leads.
That's in Liverpool.
Yeah, so they've got, we're hearing about that actually in our conference this year, an update from the OMNI study, which is a study looking at patients from the UK, from the States and from Australia, and get, all that clinical data sort of comes together through that registry. So there's a big network of people that really do want the best. So there's lots of still unanswered questions, but actually the knowledge that is being found is being shared. We've got Paul Nathan who's talking at ESMO this year, which is, a really huge event, European Society of Medical Oncology, that happens once a year, and the top papers are presented, and we've got a spotlight on ocular melanoma this year.
Which
There'll
is
be an update.
fabulous.
Do you know what I mean? There'll be an update at ESMO about this tiny little rare cancer.
Yeah.
So it shows that advances are happening, and we kind of, we're getting there. And then we just kind of need to make sure that patient voice is coming through loud and clear, so it's actually understood. So one thing, like I think you and I have spoken before, how many trips and falls people have after diagnosis.
Yes.
It's kind of something that's always talked about in the group, but actually, hey, do people have more trips and falls? After having your eye treatment, is it just, or actually does it stay the same, but they're just more noticeable than before, or has a bigger impact?
To blame it on, or
Exactly. And I was thinking, okay, well, what do we then do with that piece of data? So say it does. If we say, okay, people are more at risk, so obviously depth perception, and some people have, difficulties with that. What would we then do about it? So it's kind of just that forward thinking, I think, all the time of just, okay, well, we know this now, but how's that going to help patients?
Yeah, I mean, all you can do is warn people. And I know that we're in the process of having our patient booklets put together and just offering advice. I mean, things to look out for. There's probably somewhere you can go on the website and look at people's stories and things that people want to share.
Yeah.
And yeah, trips and falls are a hazard. All of this, Jo, the psychological drain on being diagnosed with something that a lot of the medical profession have never come across in their life. They may have heard of it, but I mean, I know for a fact that I'm the only patient that my GP of 34 years has ever met with ocular melanoma.
Yeah.
And you think about how many patients go through those waiting rooms in a day.
Yeah.
It is very rare. And what are we able to do? I mean, that it's a massive part of our community, is the fact that we have access to a helpline. And what as OMUK, what are we doing for
we've got
support?
I mean, psychological support has been running now, like our psychological support service has been running now for 8-9 years at least, I think. So we work with a health psychologist. So we had a couple of people kind of that we'd spoken to through the help. I was running the helpline back then, and it was before we brought on the wonderful Matt, who now looks after people. We kind of spoken to a few people that had tried to seek help elsewhere. And, I think it's difficult kind of once you have to tell your healthcare professional about your condition, I think it reduces, or it can, not always, but sometimes it can have an effect on the support that you receive from that person afterwards. So yeah, I mean, I received some support after we lost my grandmother, and the lady that I spoke to was really kind of like, once I mentioned what we do, she asked about the charity, and straight away I was back in charity mode. Where
Yeah.
I was kind of educating the person on, telling them a bit about ocular melanoma, what that means, what we do here as a charity. So it was really difficult for me to then slip back in to patient mode or
Yes.
receive support mode kind of thing, and open up.
It's funny you say that. I find that really hard as well.
Yeah, I've
I'll have a surgeon that stood at the foot of my bed, which happened recently, saying something, and I'm thinking, we've got a patient who could probably benefit from that. Can I just email you? And I'm thinking, a minute, I've been on the operating table, and I'm just saying, remember this conversation, putting it in my notes on my phone because my head's a bit out there.
it's
Yeah, no,
hard, isn't
you're
it? And I'm trying
right.
to think back, like when we started the psychological support service, I don't think that had happened to me yet. So we knew that actually, we knew just from people that it was important for them to be able to talk to another person who could support them, who sort of had an understanding of what that condition meant. So Dr. Laura Hope Stone is got an immense amount of knowledge supporting people. And so we spoke to Laura and just said, look, it's fantastic that the hospital she works for in Liverpool have a psychological support service open for their patients. What can we do as a charity to kind of help other people? We launched this, the psychological support service kind of from that conversation. And I think it was probably about a year later that I found myself in that situation where you kind of realise actually it's difficult to wear two hats in that hour slot that you've got with your therapist or your counsellor or, whoever it is that you're seeing. So I think kind of if somebody has a picture of what it's like for you as a patient living with this or as a loved one trying to support somebody with this condition, it kind of just nails that support that much better. More of the time is actually spent about you and you're not sort of flipping hats. So yeah, we sort of started doing in that service, and it's there. People can just self-refer to it. They can just book it through our website. It goes straight off to Laura. She's now working with another few people. So occasionally it might be that the patient needs support. It might be that their loved one needs support, or their son, daughter, mum, dad, so then she works with another few people as well that can support the family as well.
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm really proud that that's available and that timings are there. Thankfully, we've got funding from like National Lottery, a few trusts over the years that have helped to keep it going, and then obviously all the fundraising money. That's kind of where it
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, we
If
don't.
anyone's listening and wants to fundraise, then please follow the links, and all the information will be available on the screens
Yeah.
throughout the podcast. It will flash up, and go to our Get Involved page. Please donate anything you feel that you can,
It
that
all
anyone can
really,
do.
really helps, and kind
Yeah, it
of,
doesn't matter how much, anything.
yeah, we're definitely, we don't like spending money, but things like psychological support, that it's helping.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's there for. So I think we always do things on the cheap, as a charity, because you can pay a little extra money and make your life a little easier sometimes. But charity our size, it's really difficult to get money from grants and trusts and that kind of thing. So I think if we've helped you, we always say to our members, don't we? Join us as a member and give us a louder voice. But actually, it's our members that then have our voice. So actually, if we've
Yes.
helped our members, tell people about us. The last thing we want is our patients having to worry about fundraising on top. And the amount of calls that Matt and I would get through the helpline of sort of somebody saying, just this has just happened. Just want to help you guys. You've helped us so much. And the whole team is fully just 100% knowing that they're okay to say, please don't fundraise for us right now. You've got a lot going on, which is something it feels wrong as a charity to say. But it's overwhelming. People need to take time. So yeah, we very much encourage people to fundraise when they're ready, or tell people and then let their family and friends or their workplaces,
Yeah.
the
I mean,
network of people.
people, and it's amazing what someone you've known for however many years, is husband or wife or partner, does for a living, and they've possibly got a pot of money waiting to be sent to a charity,
Yeah,
or they've got a grant fund within them, or so. I mean, it's really
exactly.
helpful.
And it's kind of like all of, I mean, fundraising, it just helps no end. So we'd never
Yeah.
say don't ever fundraise for us, but sometimes people come first, people come first, full stop. So it might just be actually, right now isn't the time that you need to be helping us back. Just
You've just
focus on
had your eye
yourself.
unenucleated. Don't
Exactly.
jump out of a
Yeah.
plane.
Please don't jump out of a plane, run a marathon when you're still recovering from surgery. So yeah, there's that part. But I think kind of like the patient information, I was just thinking about what you said earlier about the sort of patient voice and how we kind of do that. We've got literature sort of coming out really, really soon, which has been difficult to bring together because you've got, there's not one size doesn't fit all. So it's kind of,
No.
it's difficult to actually put patient information out there where you're not overloading somebody, you're not giving them too much information that you think, I'm never going to pick up that book and read such and such, or that it's too technical, that kind of stuff. So yeah, in the patient literature that we're putting together, and we've already got some out on our website, there's lots of like little antidotes from patients, actually what's made their life easier, their day-to-day kind of adjustments. So yeah, just working with the clinical community, the amount of emails that have gone backwards and forwards, and they've been so supportive of just helping us get that right word in, not
Yeah.
overloading people,
Well,
all that
they're
kind of
going to be
stuff.
they are going to be the people, not the only people, but they will be responsible for sharing our patient literature when they have newly diagnosed patients, or people asking questions themselves. I mean, we are happy for anyone to be signposted
Yeah,
towards us as a charity.
absolutely. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. So kind of like paying for psychological support, keeping the helpline running, that's kind of like our core thing. We can never let that go. It's too important to people. But then things like writing patient literature, you can't just write patient literature. You go through a massive process. So we got our PIVTIC accreditation a few years back, which I'm really proud of, because actually
Proud moment.
it was a very proud moment, because a lot of work goes into producing, you kind of read it, just keep
Do
it.
you want to explain what that is? There's a lot of
Yeah,
people
so
that won't know what PIVTIC is.
PIVTIC, so it used to be called information standard. So like when you've got a booklet, and I can't believe I don't have one to hand right now.
That's fine, don't worry.
Here we go. So yeah, you've got patient information booklets. This is our one
Okay.
on metastatic disease. Obviously, this is just my copy. It's not going to go out. So we've got this little tick, which basically says that
Yeah.
we've got trusted health information. So,
Right.
there's a process that you go through to make sure that all the information that you're saying is clinically correct, that you've got resources to back up any sort of statements you've made, any sort of facts and figures that you've included, which for this kind of isn't always necessary, but like clinicians who have an expertise in that area. So for example, anything about liver directed treatment, Neil Pearce was fantastic and helped us pull that all together. Anything about the systemic treatments, we had Paul Nathan from Mount Vernon helped us with it, Dr. Yanis Karidis from Southampton. So you have specialist doctors in those areas helping you write the information for those particular areas. You've got patients involved with quotes and things like that, but actually the overall feel of the booklet, the font is all the correct size from an accessibility point of view. So yeah, lots of sort of guidelines through the sort of PIVTIC process that you follow to make sure that the end result is then sort of as good as it can be. So obviously you've got free reign to then put the content in that you feel is relevant, but then it's kind of not what I feel is relevant, it's what our communities feel is relevant. So we start from
Yes.
the very beginning of kind of like, okay, well, what do you want information on? So we did it backwards, because actually at the time information on metastatic disease was most needed. So our first booklet out was actually around treatments that come on later on for some people. And we're now gone back and doing the same for, okay, well, what is uveal melanoma? What is conjunctival melanoma? Which are the two types of ocular melanomas? What information about plaque, that kind of. So we've kind of gone backwards.
Yeah.
but purposely, because actually that's what our community needed. We've got a booklet that we're doing with Laura Hopestone around the psychological impact and actually adjusting to life again after the condition, stuff on Drive It. So all of that's kind of in the back burner, which will be hugely satisfying once it's kind of out there.
Yeah, and it's
Already.
what the patients need.
Yeah.
It's fabulous resources, and it just makes people who've been diagnosed with something so rare just feel less alone. And that's very much where OMUK is. It's the living well with and living alongside. And yeah, we are united against
Yeah.
eye cancer. And again, your work is just the hours that you put in, but we're not going to go there. That's fine. What do you do in your spare time, Jo? Do you have any?
So I got 2 incredible kids and 2 older incredible stepkids. So I know I don't look old enough, but I am a very, very proud grandma. We've got a granddaughter and grandson and fantastic family. So, we're Italian, we're cooking all the time. That's a big part of our life, is making sure that we've got really good food on tap all the time. So yeah, love cooking. We've just got a little doggy called
Okay.
Christopher.
Did you name him Christopher?
He was a rescue dog.
Oh, lovely.
A little rescue dog. I've plastered pictures all over the internet already. I'm going to be one of those doggy mums. And yes, he was 4 years old and he's only ever had a home for 3 months. The rest of the time he's lived in kennels. And he's just fantastic. He sits on the top of our sofa and just watching cars go past, watching people go by, making sense of the world.
Well, you've made his life as well as a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, we really wanted another dog and thought of getting a puppy. At the moment we didn't have time to do the sort of puppy training stuff. And yeah, we've kind of thought about rescuing the dog from there for a while, and then finally husband caved in and we were just like, right, let's get let's get out there.
The kids are old enough to pin him down now. It's fine. You hold Dad, I'm going to get the dog.
They saw the slightest little nick of him cave in.
Chink in the armour.
Exactly. So yeah, we were straight in there. And then yeah, luckily love this little dude to pieces. He's such a lovely dog. So
and he pulls you away from the screen just long enough. Even if you're on the phone, at least you're going out and walking. And I mean, I love my dogs as well. So they're plastered all over the inside.
And I couldn't believe it's been like 13, we've been in our house like 13 years since our last dog. And it was just, that's just too long. We need another little pooch in the house. So yeah, that family and cooking is kind of my thing. It's I think the hard part, if we were allowed to quickly touch on that, is obviously when things don't go right for people, and getting through those times is difficult. And kind of say like free time and Ocumel stuff, or OMUK stuff, it's difficult for something else to take priority over what we're doing. Like if you think, oh, okay, yeah, I could really sort out their bedroom or sort out their chest of drawers, or I could be doing some work that actually is quite meaningful, or do some support and things like that. So it's difficult to make that balance. Obviously we've got a brilliant team on board now, so that's becoming a shared load, but it's tough. And I think I remember you saying to me, Jo, like, how the hell do you do it? Some days you get to know people, obviously, and that's can be really tough. But I think that one thing still stands with me, is we can't always change what happens to people, but we can make sure that they're not on their own and that they've always got somewhere to turn. And I think that just takes that edge off those difficult times, because I think we all feel it as a community, when we lose somebody. Thankfully, we're having a marked improvement on that happening.
Yes.
And we kind of don't ever, I want to look at kind of how we support relatives better in the future. So we've got a small group where we do offer support for people, so people are still part of our community. They're still there because they, like me, want to help other people. And that could make a really big difference. So we want to do that. We want to got some cool stuff coming up around early detection. I'll be really pleased when we get that off the ground, because that's how we can reach everybody, and not everybody, but a significant amount of people, and help them get that diagnosis earlier. Encourage people to have regular eye tests, think about that. So yeah, I've got a nice way of doing that, which isn't go to the opticians and find out if you have eye cancer. That's not the messaging we can get out there.
I mean, you're not going to the optician to find out if you've got eye cancer. You're going to the optician for the health of your eyes. And it's really, really important. You can have random stuff. You can have pressure. You never know. You might be heading down a diabetic route, and
Yeah,
things like that can be detected if you've got a history of glaucoma in the family. You might have banged your head and detached your retina. All sorts of things can happen, and you need to take care of your eyes. You might be struggling with dry eyes, or you've got eye
yeah.
strain and your glasses are wrong because you've had them for 18 months, 2 years, or it's just, I can't
There's so many fixable things, aren't
wait.
there?
Yeah,
That can
absolutely.
actually be there, and it's not until I had a problem years back, and they thought it was something scary. Thankfully, it wasn't, and thankfully, it doesn't mean any kind of treatment. But I know that it's there. So yeah, it's not until you notice that little change, and if you have a flashing light, gosh, it doesn't mean that you're going to get ocular melanoma, but it does mean go and see somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Go to the
I've
opticians.
marched a child of mine off with, got black specs. I'm like, okay, we're going.
Yeah, just get it checked out. Nobody's going to think you're wasting anybody's time.
No, not at all.
We did it eye patch day. So every May we have like eye patch day, and hand on heart, I don't do it all day every single year, but I definitely do it as a reminder. Wear an eye patch, and suddenly you kind of think, yeah, actually my vision is pretty important, and I do want to look after it. So yeah, I think just message to anybody out there, adults, kids. When my kids were younger and at school, and we started the eye patch day campaign, I had parents that would come up to me afterwards say, I'd never even thought about getting so and so checked, but actually they really needed glasses and they couldn't see half of what the teacher was showing them.
No, exactly, because children don't actually know what's normal, or
Exactly.
if you've been forever kind of a little bit fuzzy on one side, your brain adjusts.
That's
That's
their normal.
that's
So they
just,
had no
yeah,
idea. And I think probably yeah, especially when the kids were young, one parent, and it was only a tiny primary school, would come up to me each year and say, I saw your thing on social media, and actually took my kids to get checked as well. So yeah, and then as adults, do we follow? Sometimes people are really good for their kids and actually less so for themselves. So yeah, having that regular eye test, NHSA once every 2 years or sooner if you're having issues. And I think that's the part, isn't it?
yeah.
If you're noticing
Don't
something
wait.
different for you, head to your
Yeah,
opticians. If you're not noticing anything for you, head to your opticians every 2 years. Just let them
yeah.
sort of take a look. So yeah, I think if we get those messages out, then that's super duper. We do some support along the way, even better, and then we fix things from up top. That would just be brilliant if we can just make this less significant for everybody, a less significant
It says
event.
it all. It kind of puts everything in a little box. We do this, and then we can help you through that, and then
Yeah,
what we're working on in the background will get you to there. And
you got to,
it's a wonderful process.
yeah, you got to try and there's never one solution, is there, for a problem that just fixes it. You kind of got to come at it from different angles.
Yeah.
So
And like you say, with the team that Ocular Melanoma UK now has, the people behind you who are now shoring you up. So hopefully you can take 10 minutes to take Christopher a walk or make some
definitely,
food.
definitely. I mean, we got stuff. We've got big stuff to push that we're doing at the moment around chemosat. We're trying to get that through on the NHS. We've issued a press release. It didn't get picked up. So we're engaging with a PR person to help us with that. Obviously, Alex and Amy have been brilliant around the Ocular Melanoma October campaign. Just getting that messaging right so we're not scaring anybody, but we are getting that awareness out. And we've picked somebody up over the weekend who needed some support through that campaign. I'm sure there's been lots of others. Out on the helpline, gosh, we haven't even talked about our helpline yet, but Matt is just amazing. He's very calming, very reassuring. He knows his stuff, and he's now supported a lot of people through this. So he's kind of like my go-to sometimes on the latest information about clinical trials, for example, or things like that. He's now supporting people through the helpline. We're looking at actually how that can be better. How can we sort of bring in more knowledge to help people, probably through benefits and things like that, going through those assessments, some of the practical knowledge. So how we can do that. We need more than a part-time helpline as we
Yeah.
reach out to more people. So all of that work goes through. But then kind of how we do it, it's all great if we do all of this in the UK. But the information that we got through when we were getting Teventafus approved through NICE, that information can't be wasted. So we shared that with our European people. So actually, when they go through the same process in their country, there's information there, there's data there that actually, well, this is actually what patients tell us about living with this condition, because that really matters.
Yes.
So yeah, how do we
Absolutely.
put everything in place for people here and also make it easier for other people as well is kind of, yeah, you don't really think about it. It becomes kind of like what you're doing day in, day out. And it's not until you sort of sit and reflect for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really ask you the question. I asked you the question early on. Well, what did you want OMUK to be able to do? I mean, you had a vision. You've kind of you've got there with everything that you wanted to be able to start achieving. I can't say we've achieved everything because we're waiting for science to catch up, actually. But what is your where do you see the next 5 to 10 years taking the charity and the treatment and the community with ocular melanoma? Where do you see that? Is that an impossible question?
Depends how quickly science catches up and does its thing, I think. And even once science catches up, it takes time. And that's the biggest frustrating thing. So the most frustrating thing is how long things take. Clinical trial closes. Fortunately, obviously, if we know people, in the community, obviously, if somebody's on a new clinical trial, so a new drug comes out, it showed that it actually helps in a dish. And then it's like, okay, well, does it help mice? Typically, or something like that, in that early sort of stage research. And then you try it in people, obviously, because there's no point in it only helping mice or other animals. You have like an early phase trial. So we normally a phase 1 trial where they're looking actually, can we give this drug to a population? But it's that first dip in the toe kind of, part of it. And then you have a phase 2 trial, phase 3 trial, where they're sort of testing it on more people, changing the frequency, the dosages, making sure that it's right before it gets that seal of approval of, yes, we're going to give this on the NHS. So sometimes you can get a drug that hits it out the park. It does everything that it needs to do for everybody that it's intended to. So sometimes you get this super speed kind of approach. But things like with the COVID vaccine, without sort of going too much into that, a lot of the sort of time, got to think clinicians have got a day job. They're not just writing up scientific papers. So, a lot of the time to review things or get them peer reviewed, get them published, there's a lot of time that could be condensed down, but not when you're talking thousands of different treatments all the time. Sometimes you need like 3-year data, how people are actually at the 3-year mark after taking that trial. So you can't speed that part up. 3 years has to pass before you can.
Massive risk in giving, you need
Yeah.
the outcomes and
So kind of like, some things is frustratingly slow. Other things you think, okay, yeah, fair enough. And obviously needing to know, it's no point in sort of saying, okay, well, actually everyone was miraculously cured on 12, but actually by year 3, it made no difference to anybody. Actually things were exactly the same. And I try and think
week 20, everybody's slipped off the plate. Yeah.
So kind of, time needs to, that path. So I think, if science comes, we've got some really interesting trials that are open at the moment for people. If that happens, timelines are all sort of adjusted.
And people can be signposted via OMUK to these trials?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the trials that we know about, which is, I say all of them, but they're the ones that we know of. We've got a clinical advisory panel. I think we've got 32 or 33 people in that group. Different types of clinicians from around the UK. So when we have a meeting, the first part of our meeting is, okay, well, what research, what updates have people got for the rest of the clinicians? So it's a way of actually sharing that data, sharing that knowledge between the clinical community, facilitating that to happen, which is really good. We're looking at actually how can we support nurses better. So we've got a piece. So we've got that draft that I need to share out, and actually we've got all the technical support that we need in place for that now. So I think that would really help if the nurses can be supported to support their patients. That's better care for for people.
Yeah. The onward care, forward care, I'm not sure, aftercare,
Yeah,
however you want to call it, is really important and has
absolutely.
been missing, and it is missing in a lot of the rare disease communities, not just the rare cancer communities, but rare diseases, and where we, I think, as a charity and the clinical advisory panel, we put stuff together, and we can therefore advise our caregivers to be able to continue with.
Yeah, and it's all just, let's say you kind of get things from a different point of view. So I think, once we've got that up and running, our website, um, our old website was years old. And it was always the nice to have thing. Last year we got the new website live. Alex has worked so hard on it, bless him. All of our information on our website has to go through that PIV process. So it's all there, and like layers of information. So for the moment we've put in all of the about ocular melanoma information there, but it's still very top level. And
Yeah.
now we're going back, and then we'll have information about treatments and living and driving and all that kind of stuff. Kind of having that bigger picture, because obviously we have a wonderful NHS, and very big sort of fan about how it works, and us being able to hold on to it, how it can be sort of more efficient and things like that, discussions for different times. But we have this wonderful NHS service, but it's really easy just to kind of have an ocular melanoma viewpoint on things. So, when we had Retta in the team, fantastic nurse who had brilliant experience with blood cancer, she was really good at helping us kind of see, actually, but that's pretty normal, or that's what most people get, or actually we can do some work here, so that is kind of helps. So kind of, having that viewpoint on us and our community, and then kind of taking a step back and actually seeing, what's typical for other people as well. So yeah, we get there.
We will get there.
We will
Is
get
there
there.
any advice that 2025 Jo would give 2009 Jo?
Run.
Don't trip up and get your eyes tested on way.
Exactly. People say like your dad would have been really, really proud, and I think he would have done. I don't think he wouldn't have done, but it's
Been hard, Jo.
it's been tough. It's been really,
Yeah.
really tough. Through COVID, you've got to think people everything stopped. And kind of us as a family, we were like, actually, we're made for this. Even one of my cousins said to his mum, actually, I'm pretty good. I don't have to thingy. And I thought, yeah, actually, that's the way to go. So, we had kids actually enjoyed learning from home. It was tough, but in terms of treatments, geez, that was really tough. People didn't know what was going to happen, what appointments. Our helpline was busier than ever. Support needed was bigger than, so we started like these community support meetings just to keep people talking, and so we had a few people sort of struggling. So yeah, I joke that if I knew what life would be like back then, would I have just stayed in a normal 9 to 5 job? No, I wouldn't.
No, because look what you have achieved, Jo.
Yeah, it's just bringing the right people together, isn't it? Of kind of just helping us get there. And I think that's one thing I'm so pleased about the team, is for me to have this drive. That's on me. But when your team's also driving that same direction, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think kind of your podcast, this is a classic thing, isn't it? Kind of like, you didn't need to come into all of this either. It's not, the fantastic Jo, well, Jo is in the shared name Jo, but
Says
it's,
it already, doesn't it?
yeah, it's not the Jo show kind of thing, is it? It's kind of, it's people like you as well that have thought, actually, resource wise, we couldn't do as a charity, but you were like, hey, can I start a podcast series? And now is, I know the people that you've got lined up for this podcast. I'm so excited for it. Because it's just nice for people to hear it. I heard Julian's. I've never done a podcast. I've never even heard of a podcast until a few weeks back, when I listened to one of our members, Julian. Actually, while I was on my dog walk, I thought, oh, let me listen to my first podcast ever. But it's a nice way of just reaching out to more people, just sort of saying that, don't not Google, because Google can be brilliant. But don't be terrified if you Google. Just come to us for support. Speak to Matt. We can't sort of ever say to somebody, well, you need to do that, you need to do this. That's not what the helpline's about. It's kind of just helping you find the answers. How can I find these answers? And knowing, actually, one thing I say about sort of the psychological support or reaching out for the helpline, sometimes you can just have a practical question that you need help for. because it's
And if your head's
nerve-wracking.
completely scrambled, then the practical things are they just fall by the wayside. So yeah,
Absolutely.
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think, if anyone's listening and just sort of thinking, well, you don't need a helpline, just think, well, do you have a question, a practical question that you think I'd really like to know, I don't know, about walking down the street? We have people saying, actually, if your vision is worse on your right-hand side, walk that side to the wall, kind of thing, or
Yeah.
have your companion to that side. So actually, your other side is, you've got better field of vision on your good side. So it's things like that. But think of, like, if people haven't reached out before or nervous about doing so, just have a practical question, ask Matt that question. And then if in that conversation you want to share a little bit about what's brought you to that, made you sort of ring, and a bit about thingy, I think just take that opportunity, because um, what we want to avoid is people kind of get into a place where it's a massive thing for them. Now, and I joke and I say, like, sitting in a corner rocking, don't wait for that time. Just give us a call, book some psychological. We do, like, Laura does some intro sessions that are only half hour, just to, like, dip your toe in, um, and then receive some support, because I think even the word psychological support sounds really heavy, and it's not at all.
And men are definitely worse at talking than women,
Yeah,
I think.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. I think it's different, isn't it? Kind of like sometimes you feel that you should shoulder everything, and that you've got to be really stoic and just sort of take it on the chin, but you wouldn't expect your best mate to do that. So I think kind of like it's quite normal just to talk to somebody. It's quite normal to have wobble days. Now, I know people talk about that in the group. I'm having a wobble day today. This is blah blah blah. Can I just come for an outlet? And yeah, having those days, having some people that you can sort of turn to and share that with, for family members as well. And our family group is less active, and we haven't kind of fixed that yet, because I think, having to support somebody through this diagnosis is sometimes just as hard. Or one of the patients actually said, I supported my husband with cancer, and now I've got it, and actually being the caregiver was harder for her.
Yeah.
So, we talk about patient information and, patient voice, but it's about the loved ones around them as well, equally so, kind of. So how do we get better at doing that? And I think possibly if we open up, like, community support events specifically for loved ones, I don't know if people would appreciate that at all. We need to talk and see where that is. So kind of, I think that's just looking for ways that we can just take the edge off people's life, is important. But I think, yeah, for everybody out there, just, it's quite normal that if you're going through a cancer diagnosis, or somebody who's going through a cancer diagnosis, that you share your thoughts with somebody. So yeah, give them a
And if
call.
that's the only message we've got across in the time that we've been together, is don't face this alone. You are not alone. There
Not at all.
are no, there's people you can talk to,
Yeah,
and yeah, it is a lonely diagnosis. But
I
but it isn't now, because I've never felt part of a larger community in my 53 years on the planet. This OMI family, as we call ourselves on Facebook, from every demographic and socioeconomic background, and
yeah.
it's it's incredible. It's very, very humbling. It's heartwarming.
But it's true. Your sign at the back there. We used to say how rare a cancer it is, and it is rare. But we've thought about, and we haven't got it right over the years at all. So it's obviously we've learned as we've grown. But things like, actually every day 1 in 2 people in the UK are diagnosed with eye cancer. That was specifically written because actually you're not alone. You're not the only person that's ever going through. There are other people that go through this all of the time. So yeah, we were kind of looked at the messaging that we have as a charity to make sure that it doesn't add to somebody's isolation.
No, because I mean, you say only you've got a however many in a million chance, or only 500
Yeah.
to 750 people. Actually, when it is worded like that, yeah,
You feel really straight away that
yeah,
you're the sort of that unique one, and kind of how we get that confidence back, or how people we can help people get their confidence back, because it is, I know that we've definitely spoken about this before. When you go to you could be diagnosed with something rare. When something rare happens, can be challenging then to get that reassurance when you're getting something else checked out, because you think, well, I've already been that rare one once. What if that happens to me again? So,
Yeah.
I've taken the kids to the doctors, and most of the time they've actually been fine. But occasionally, something's been needed, and doctor or GP would sort of say, "Oh, but that's incredibly rare that would happen." Yeah, I know that, but
Yeah.
let's just run with this for a little bit.
Yeah,
It just
it's
kind
funny you
of,
should say that.
yeah, it doesn't hit the same. Well, for me, definitely, it doesn't hit. That reassurance doesn't come like it would have done beforehand.
No.
So yeah, I think that rare messaging is important, and I think kind of if we can say it in a way that actually brings the community together, I think just helps. Little things. So yeah, that was Alex's kind of wording, and I thought I love that. That's
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's fabulous. And on that note, would you do another podcast? Have you enjoyed it if this is your first one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, it's
All
just
right.
it's just us talking, isn't it? So yeah, obviously we always hate what brings us together, but it's the one thing that actually brings cool people together. So
It does bring cool people together, and we go back to Bettina's comment. Yes,
absolutely, and kind of like knowing that you're going to get to speak to Neil Pearce, who we've known now for years. He's just, I love that man to bits. Yeah, he's just incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly funny, incredibly kind, and what he's done for our community is out of this world.
yeah. I can't wait to speak to him,
And I
and
think
we've got some great guests lined up as
yeah, so
well.
just having the opportunity for where actually his voice can come, and then our community will get to know actually all the fantastic stuff that he's done will be brilliant. Hearing from other patients, hearing from different doctors. Yeah, I just honestly, Jo, I think I was so pleased that you were able to do this, because this would not be something that I'd lean into myself.
I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and here we are. But Shades of 2018. Let's do a gala. Oh, okay. Here we are. Or what was the other one? Should we go on Good Morning Britain with this?
That was your first one, wasn't it? It was kind of like, okay, this has happened. I'm going on Good Morning Britain next week. What do I need to know?
Yeah. Ocular melanoma fast tracked.
No, but I'm really pleased. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for being my first person that I ever done a podcast with.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing. I think you've got like 18 people lined up or something crazy, haven't you? So it's going to be a brilliant series, and just wanted to say thank you. And
well, thank you for everything that you do, and a massive thanks from the whole OM community.
I couldn't do it without everybody. But thank you.
Go take Christopher out.
Will do. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye. If you or someone you know has been affected by the topics discussed in this episode, support and information are available. You can visit Ocular Melanoma UK at www.omuk.org for guidance, resources, to connect with our helpline and others who understand. Remember, no one should face ocular melanoma alone.